Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of New Music Finds. So this is where I like to collect together all the different bands and albums and things that I've picked up over the past week, and I get it from different places like my local record store, but also online retail like Amazon, eBay, and more. And I've got a bunch of different things here. Let's see, we've got 5, 6, 7, 8 CDs and a box set to run through with you here. I'm going to do that in just a bit. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like. All those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on really cool videos just like this with new music finds. So normally I kick off with brand new releases, but unfortunately this past week here, March 10th, there wasn't anything coming out that I was interested in. So unfortunately we will move right off to the what I call catalog items, used items, things of that nature, the other stuff that I picked up. And I got some cool stuff. So first thing is I hit up my local record store, Sound Exchange, always able to find some good stuff there. And I was on a, for the previous week, I was actually on a whole sort of prog rock kick and stuff like that. But most specifically, I was into a lot of Yes related things because the band Yes just announced a brand new album, put out its first single, and then that just sort of whetted my appetite and I had to get some more stuff. So while this guy is not in the current lineup of Yes, Trevor Rabin, and this album here, Jacaranda, I'm quite sure I did not say that right, but that is the best I can do with it. This album here, and I'm not seeing the date right on the back, but it's been a while. This album here, I want to say is like around 2010, 2012, somewhere in that era that he put this thing out. And to date, it is his latest album that he's done with, or a solo album that he has done outside of movie soundtracks. Trevor Rabin not only being in Yes, having a solo career before all of that, but becoming very famous for doing lots of movie scores, soundtracks, things like that. So this one here, very different than his other albums and things. It's all instrumental. And this is definitely very interesting stuff. There's elements that are full on, very close to the sound that he was doing with Yes, and then he bridges off into other things, including stuff that is more like the scores that he's doing for films and things like that. So it's kind of a fun album, having a wide variety of sounds and things on it. I also picked up his debut solo album. So it originally came out under the name Beginnings, and a year later, that was 77, and then in 78, they retitled it as just this. Self-titled meaning, and it put it out with an alternate album cover and so forth. And this is the one that I see most often, so I'm not really sure why they didn't stick with the original album cover and stuff like that. I actually find the original album cover far more interesting than this one that is just a picture of him, which when I look at this, I often think I'm seeing Freddie Mercury as opposed to Trevor Rabin. But this one here turned out to be really good. I tried to listen to this online and stream some stuff. Turns out it's actually very hard to find any uploaded performances of this stuff. And the thing that I listened to, I don't know if it just had the tracks resequenced or what it was, but it would play a nice rockin' tune and then it would play a very mellow song. And I wasn't into the mellow songs. And I get this thing home and it's far more rockin' than whatever it was that that person had uploaded that was trying to say that it was this album. So this thing here turned out to be much better than I was anticipating. And turns out I like all of his stuff. I'm going to have to go back, I think, even further into the band that was before his solo stuff called Rabbit and see what I think of that. Definitely a fan of his Yes stuff first. Go back to his solo and we'll see about Rabbit after that. Okay, as I mentioned, fully into the prog rock Yes thing, so picked up another Rick Wakeman solo album. This one here, Rhapsodies. This was a double album back when it was released in 1979 on A&M Records and apparently never issued a CD until it came out by the Real Gone Music label. So nice that they put this out. They did a couple of these. They grabbed a couple of these A&M record releases and put it out. I didn't know until I got this thing home. I'm reading the liner notes on it and found out that Tony Visconti produced it. I'm a big fan of his work. I like what he did with David Bowie, and there's a few other artists out there that he worked with and stuff. And so I thought it was pretty cool that he had done this here. Like I said, I wasn't expecting that because they don't actually mention it anywhere on the backside. I kind of hate it when they do that. I don't know why that is, why sometimes they would leave off the producer's credit or anything of that nature off the back of an album. But it's the same thing. Sometimes you open up an album and it doesn't tell you who plays on it, and that always drives me nuts as well. So this album is kind of a little bit all over the place. Not quite what I would like. You know, there's what I consider the perfect Rick Wakeman album, and then there's the more eclectic ones. And this is not all the way eclectic, not quite the perfect, it's kind of right down the middle. So it's good though, but it's been growing on me since I got it. And then I picked up a couple things that just look good. These were used items, and I own everything, you know, standard album wise by this band, but I picked up 2 Scorpions best ofs, and they're both from the Uli Jon Roth era, the early era before they broke big with all the commercial stuff and whatnot. And this first one here, the volume 1, is got all the big hits, and well, when I say big hits, but the hits of that era. So Steam Rock Fevered, Picture Life, Speedy's Coming, which is a fantastic one, He's a Woman, She's a Man, Sales of Charon, and Virgin Killer, stuff like that. And then what's cool is I like these, the volume 2s, where I don't know any of the songs that are on these because they're all the lesser known tracks and stuff like this. Those were both put out in 1984 to capitalize when Scorpions were breaking big with all of that commercial era stuff. And sort of unfortunately, I feel like it's a bit, you know, trying to dupe the fans, because when you call it a best of and you put it out when they've got all the big radio hits and stuff like that, and then none of those are on there, I always really dislike that. But this was a different label. It was RCA, and they only had the earlier catalog of stuff to go on anyway, so they couldn't have ever added that other stuff. But there again, we're just trying to capitalize on the popularity of the band at that time. All right, now I talk endlessly about this, I know, not being a big live album fan. A lot of you guys asked me whether or not I was going to pick this up, and I repeatedly said no, I would not pick it up. But if you recall, when I did New Music Now, and I'm going to show you this one and talk about it briefly in a minute, I picked up this album here, Headstone, live at Hammersmith in 1983. Live album there got me to where I wanted more from UFO, and I own all the studio albums, and I own the best ofs, and I own all these other things. What I didn't own, Strangers in the Night, the box set. I have the album, but I did not have the box set. And when a lot of you guys asked me about this, I said, nope, no need to own it because it's got 6 live albums of essentially the same set list that would eventually be culled down into what would become the Strangers in the Night album itself. And I really just bought this box because I was desperately needing something else by UFO to sort of fill that need, and I went ahead and picked this up. After getting it, I found that it's actually pretty worthwhile in my opinion. Not only are all of the live shows really good, but I found out that it includes what is the original running order of the album, and done like a vinyl. It's on 2 separate CDs. So it's like the double album that was released. Later on, they would reorder the track listing. They would add 4 additional songs to it, and that's what the remasters are that are out there. So that's not what the original release was. I didn't know that. So it's kind of cool to get the original album that way, then get the 6 albums that make it up and hear that, because on the album Strangers in the Night, there are 2 tracks on there that are actually studio songs that had audience noise added to it, so they're not really live. There was also some overdubs and things done in the studio to tweak and fix. So the Strangers in the Night album is not really full on live, but the albums that are in here are. So you get that, and this is a really nice packaging, the way that it's done, and it slides off like that, and then you get all of the different albums in there. There's a good booklet that's in here and stuff. This is the replica of the vinyl double album release, you know, so you're getting it actually produced like that. And then each one of the live albums that are in here gets their own sleeve, and they come in, I'm not sure why the one that is the actual Strangers of the Night doesn't have the inner sleeve, but they do put it for these here, and you get all the tracks, and it's very clear what you're hearing and stuff like that. The booklet itself, if I can get to it, doesn't want to come out. is in one of these as well, and then the booklet slides out like that. So cool the way that they do it. It's nicely done. So it was a good package, a good book, stuff like that. And ultimately, I'm glad I picked it up. So never say never. And a lot of times when there's things like that that come out and I don't pick them up right away, if later on, like this, I'm really jonesing for something, sometimes it can happen. So, all right, back to this though. As I mentioned, you guys saw this in the New Music Now episode when I did the unboxing right from the mail on it, and I absolutely loved this. This turned out to be so good, having all these tracks from the Paul Chapman era, the lesser known songs. In fact, the only song on here that was really a big hit with the Shankar era was well, actually, no, not any of those songs. So all of these songs that are on here are the Chapman era except Electric Phase, but that one not even being a big hit on here. So just cool album with, somebody was asking about this. There's a track listing. You can pause on that if you want to try to read that. But Google is what I always say. So when you can't read something that I'm showing here, just Google the albums. Wikipedia is great for that stuff. But this one here, such a great live album, has shot up the ranking for me in terms of best live albums out there, in my opinion. And that one we know is not tinkered with in the studio. And then I picked this up, Grand Funk, the final album that I didn't have, and the final studio album for them, What's Funk. And I actually thought I wasn't going to enjoy this, and turned out I really, really did. It's a little bit more straight ahead rock, less of the funk stuff that they were doing in the 70s. But it's just so good. This one here, along with Grand Funk Lives, turned out to be two of my favorite albums. I'm quite sure it's because I'm more of an 80s era fan that grew up in the 80s with all that sort of music and whatnot. So I'm going to lean towards production jobs and songwriting styles and things that are of that. But I really, really enjoyed those, making me wish the band had continued on into the 80s. That's a Wounded Bird Records release. Unfortunately, those Wounded Bird ones are out of print now, so they go for a pretty penny. But I managed to pick each of those up for around the $20, $25 mark kind of a thing. Not do too bad on those. All right, and then Gathering of Kings, Swedish group. I messed that one up last time when I was telling you guys about it, but know that they are a Swedish band now. And they are made up from some other bands and stuff that come together to do this. But as I mentioned before, they, to me, remind me a lot of the band Asia. And that's actually why I got into them, or how I got into them and stuff. I don't remember if somebody recommended them to me or I just stumbled across them, but I have really enjoyed them, and they've just been so hard to track down. They don't get wide releases and stuff. I found this one on eBay. If you're not familiar with them, they are available to stream. You can look them up, certainly on Apple Music. I highly recommend them. Just some really, really good melodic AOR type rock stuff that you guys might enjoy too. So, but there you go. I got some good stuff kind of across the board, 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up to something more new like Gathering of Kings. Certainly leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts. And I hope you guys have a good day. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.